say at Forward, we didn't come here to start a church. We came here to start a family. And God described pretty clearly for us in Ephesians 4 what that was supposed to look like, what that kind of family was supposed to look like. So I want to kick off first and foremost by reading from Ephesians 4 when he described what this type of family was supposed to look like. He says, I urge you to live a life that is worthy of this calling that you've received. Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. There is one body and one Spirit, just as you were all called to one hope when you were called. One Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father over all, who is over all and through all and in all of us. But to each one of us, grace has been given as Christ has decided to give it. So Christ himself gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors, the teachers to equip his people for what? For serving. So that the body of Christ may be built up until all reach unity in the faith and in the knowledge of the Son of God and can become mature, attaining to the whole measure of the fullness of Christ. Then we'll no longer be like little kids, tossed back and forth by the waves of life and blown here and there by every wind of new teaching that comes along, by the cunning and craftiness of people who are deceitful. Instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become in every respect the mature body of him who is the head, which is Christ. From him, this whole body, joined and held together by every single supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up in love as each part of this family does its work. I've been in this neighborhood my whole life. So 36 years I've been in the neighborhood. And for 36 years, I've watched two very separate cultures play out. You got the church culture, the religious folks, the church folks, and you got the uninterested folks, right? Where it's just like, I don't want any of that at all. Both existing completely mutually exclusive of one another without having very much effect on the other, either one. And if anything, the world has had more effect on the church than the church has had on the world, in my neighborhood at least. And so the question coming into this calling is how to engage the culture of the everyman, the utterly uninterested and unimpacted person who has been uninterested and unimpacted by this church culture in such a way that we can bring the gospel that we hold so dear down to earth for the everyman to see and feel tangibly in his everyday life. And I believe by the grace of God that he's allowed us to begin doing exactly that over the past 3 years in this neighborhood. I mean, we have a church on every corner almost in our neighborhood. We don't need another church in my neighborhood at all. What our community needs is a picture of God's family actually living and operating in their midst for all to see. We don't need another church. We need one very different one. The family of God to land in Slavic Village. The world's seen church, you know what I mean? And they're not interested. They're not interested. Meaning that if we just build some great church over on Broadway, we still won't draw in the people who aren't interested in church. Think of it this way. If there was a Jewish temple in our neighborhood, there is nothing about that temple itself that would make me go there. You know what I'm saying? Nothing. No radical new rabbi could show up and, oh man, maybe I'll go there. No 3-part series on relationships would make me want to go to the Jewish temple. I mean, there's nothing that they could do that would make me leave the culture in which I live to go suddenly join their culture. You know what I mean? But if that temple was holding some event to benefit our community or our residents, or giving away backpacks that my kids could benefit from to go to school or whatever it would be, then perhaps I might find myself in their lobby. You know what I mean? I might find myself starting a relationship or talking to their desk clerk or whatever it would be. But you see what I'm saying? To the people who live in the everyday culture and who don't know Christ, we are irrelevant to their everyday lives until we somehow intersect with their everyday lives. And I believe God's given us an opportunity here at Forward to do just that. Because none of us who stood on the stage are church folks. We all come from the everyday bubble, the everyday culture. We have a chance to truly do that, not by focusing on building some awesome church, but by serving the needs of our community with a reckless abandon right where they're at, in the community, and being a street-level picture of God's family in action for all to see. Because everybody, all of us, no matter where our faith background is, no matter what we believe, no matter what, everybody here and everybody out there understands family. You know what I'm saying? And they have a heartfelt desire to belong to something, to be accepted, to be loved for who they are, like a family. It's the only time people experience it if they don't know Christ. People who are loyal to each other when the chips are down. People who are faithful to each other when someone else tries to badmouth. If it's someone in my family, I'm standing up for him immediately. If it's someone in Joe Schmo's family who don't even know Christ, he's standing up immediately. It's the only time they experience that. Willing to stand up no matter what for the people who happen to share my blood or my DNA or my last name. We need family in this life, and everybody in this neighborhood understands that. Everybody in everyday culture knows they need to be a part of family, and they love the family that they're in. Right from birth, we're born crying out for mama. You know what I'm saying? Yearning for the acceptance of a father and bonding with our brothers and sisters. I would argue that it's the only, in the context of family, is the only time that the world ever experiences love. Ever. People who don't know Christ love inside of the box of family. Outside of their immediate family, all other loves or affections or whatever, it's always from a consumer mindset. I give them this, this, and that. There's some cost I pay for that, but she gives me this, this, and this. And therefore, as long as you're a good vendor, I'll be your consumer. But if somebody comes around that can offer me a better product at a lower cost, peace, I'm out. And the world only loves family inside of that box. So what we need to do is show our neighborhood that we're not just a cool church. We're a family. And we operate and act like a family all day, every day. Once we come to Christ, the box is blown off. And for the first time, we can actually love people without restrictions. It doesn't matter anymore if somebody happens to share my last name or share my DNA or even my skin color or my background. We see for the first time, the moment that we see God for who He is, that we are a body, the body of Christ, God's children. And for that reason, every man and woman under Christ becomes my family, period. And just like I used to stand up for my little brother at school or whatever it would be, I'll stand up for this stranger who happens to be a part of my forward family. If we can act and operate like that as a family, the world will be drawn in. They will know there's something different over there. They're not just playing church, wearing funny hats, waving things. They're a family who operates and acts like a family. When the church is operating like that, it's the most beautiful expression of God's best for a community. A diverse and beautiful family that has its flaws, it has its weaknesses, like any other family, but it works together despite our differences for the greater mission that our Father of this family gave us to go and do. Amen. And so our calling at Forward is not to have a great church. It's not. It's not to get bigger at all. It's to get smaller. Because anyone who comes, if we fill the room, 70% just want to play church or wave a hand. Get out. Get smaller. 70, and then it builds, get smaller. Jesus was always trying to kill the crowd. Whenever you see people gather around Jesus, it says, a great crowd gathered around Jesus. And then he'd say something absolutely ridiculous to get people to go away who were just playing games. He would say, whoever doesn't eat my flesh or drink my blood can't hang out with, and people would be like, and then the next verse is like, and so the people walked away sadly. And for real. Because he wasn't about gathering a crowd. So when you see those crowds gather, you know it's about the dude holding the mic and not about the God above. You know what I mean? And so our calling is not to have some great church or to build some great thing, but to build a great family. You know what I mean? Because the lost world is no longer interested in church. We dropped that ball a long time ago. But they crave and they yearn for true family and loyalty, no matter what. Let's stop inviting people to our church before we invite them to our dinner table. Let's truly start actually living as a family. Forward is not like a family. It is a family. And if we don't view it that way, it won't really be a family. And I must admit, at times, I have led this calling to plant Forward more like an orphanage than a family, where we not only meet people where they're at, but we enable them to stay there by treating them more like orphans than members of a family. You know what I mean? The trouble is that until you call people to a higher level with a hand up out of their circumstances, they're fine to just stay exactly where they're at with a hand out. You know what I mean? We didn't come here to start an orphanage. We came to establish God's family right here on Broadway, and to call one and all to just cut the games and join the fam. Get real and follow Christ. Let's stop existing to do ministry to this community, and let's exist to invite a community to be a part of a family that ministers to this community. Because I won't allow this mission to be some flash in the pan that the city starts to get excited about, or we get media press coverage for. I'm not going to allow it to be a flash in the pan that just passes just like the pages of that magazine. We will fulfill all that God has called us to be and be a spark that catches the attention of those living in darkness in Slavic Village, flat out. In the wilderness that our current culture aimlessly walks around silly in, we are called to be a voice that speaks their language, hands that serve like his, and a church that acts like a family. People from different backgrounds and races and financial status, and all coming together and actually operating as one big, blessed, happy family. The church is supposed to be a picture of God's best for a community. A family where we don't invite people to events or space to fill, but we invite them into relationships. Real, everyday, let's chop it up relationships. A family where we invite people into an active role and responsibility, not just some passive activity or here's a chair to sit in. A family where our lives actually intersect every day rather than just on Sunday. We can grow this thing bigger than you would believe if we would just start thinking of addition rather than intersection. But we need people who are willing to join the family, not attend our church. Because things generally aren't a real problem until they're your problem. You know what I mean? Everyone here needs to realize you're not someone who just comes to a church if you come to Forward every week. You know what I mean? If you so choose, you can become a member of this family so that the struggles and the problems of our church, of our family, of our community, they become your problem. Until it's my problem, it's not really a problem. You know what I'm saying? Just for an example, when we moved down here, I moved to Garfield Heights, right? More so out of fear than faith, because I didn't know exactly what God was calling me to do in the neighborhood. I just knew I was handing out chicken. You know what I'm saying? So we moved to Garfield Heights because I wanted my kids to go to their school system. So realizing that that's not what God's calling me to do, now He's planted a church, we're moving dead into the middle of Slavic Village. And the school system's always been this thing like, yeah, man, they got rough schools over in Slavic Village. We should really do something about that. But now that my kids are going to be in that school, it's like, where's the PTA? I need to join the PTA. I need to move the PTA. We're going to talk to the mayor. We need to, because now it's my problem. It's not the Slavic Village people's problem. It's my problem. Even though I'm from here, you know, if my kids aren't going there, it doesn't affect my everyday life, and so I don't care. If I hear of a person's gas getting shut off, I can either view that as their problem, or if they're in our family, I would view that as my problem. If it was my dad or my cousin or what, I would view that as my problem, wouldn't I? If it's their problem, then I might just make a few calls for them, you know, casually try to help them in some way. But if it's my problem and my family member's problem, living without heat, I'm going all in to find a solution no matter what. If I got to borrow money, if I got to sell hot dogs at Save Up, whatever I got to do, I'm going to get, because that's my family. I'm not going to let them go without heat. That's how Jesus called us to live and to look with everything you got, and love other people like you love yourself. If my heat goes off, trust and believe I'm doing whatever I can to get that heat. And so therefore, if you're my family, how would I not respond the same if I'm truly loving you as I love myself? Let's cut the games and get down to the business of truly pursuing what God's called us to do in this neighborhood. Is Slavic Village a place to visit, to help the others? Or is it a place that I'm willing to plant my feet and make the problems of others my problem? It's why I encourage mission teams when they come to town to sleep at Forward. You know what I mean? During their time on mission here, if it's at all possible. Because until it's my kids sleeping on 55th and Broadway, I really can't resonate with what it's like to sleep there every single day in our neighborhood. You know what I mean? Until the cries and the fears and the struggles of others become my own fears and struggles, it'll be very difficult for me to fight for them or to love them as I love myself. And so I don't want anyone to just come to our church. If that's the interest, there's plenty in the neighborhood. I'll give you a list. You know what I mean? I want people to come and join a family that will operate and act and be an accurate representation of Christ to the world. I know that Christ is the answer to everything. Not because Daddy told me or learned in the Bible say, because he radically transformed my heart and my mind in a bam moment. I know I got the cure to everything. But that cure has been marketed to the world so horribly that the world is looking at the cure of Jesus Christ and saying, if that's what it looks like, I'm good. I'll try heroin. I'll try alcohol. I'll try... Really? But if you want to be a part of a family where we actually care more about relationships than religion, where we care more about being at the service of this community every day, rather than just having trying to get the community to come to our service on Sunday, a family that values acceptance over judgment and is all about progressing in one direction rather than pretending with two faces, then you're in the right place. You know what I mean? On an everyday basis, what does that look like in operation? It means that people are welcome additions to this family, not the center of attention. You know what I mean? Once a kid in the Bazziani family is past the goo-goo gaga, coddling age, they will no longer be coddled. They will no longer be the center. So Gideon's learning that right now because we just had a baby. Gideon's like 4 and he was always the goo-goo gaga stage. And you are a welcome addition to this family, brother. Love you to death. But you have responsibilities. You are a welcome addition, not the center of attention. Because now you can pick up the plates and bring them to whatever the responsibility based on age. You're a welcome addition to this family, not the center of attention. We will stop running this like an orphanage and start running it like a family for real. As a family, we need to invite people into responsibility instead of just activities or come to this thing. In a family, everyone has a responsibility. And a person's position within a family is not based upon the activities that they come to, but upon how much responsibility they take on. You can come to every event that Forward does, but if you are not responsible for anything or anyone, then you're just a consumer, like I talked about earlier. Like, okay, well, what can I get? Oh, well, they got a new worship team down there. I'm going to change churches. I'm going to go to that one because now it's new. Whatever it would be. It's just consumerism. In a family, everyone pulls their weight. Some more than others. I get that based upon age. I'm not asking Gideon to cut the grass. You know what I'm saying? And the same here, if I'm a babe in Christ, if I just came to Christ and I'm like 2 days saved, I'm not asking him to run the youth ministry. But I'm saying, we're not going to run it like an orphanage. We are a family. And if we say that every week, I come up here, you hear me say, right, we came here to start a family, not a church. We need to act like a family then. And that means something for each one of us and not just for me. We won't allow passive activity in a neighborhood. We won't allow the passive activity in a neighborhood they need to see a living and active hand of God to give them a hand up, not a hand out. When you ask people to stop playing church and actually step up and take responsibility, you will begin to see people walk away, and we already have. You know what I mean? Because we press so hard. Like I said, we build it to 300, and then we're at 80. And then we go to 150, and then because our neighborhood's inability or refusal to step up to the plate and take responsibility is what's led us to where we're at right now. CNN called us the worst neighborhood in America. You tie that all the way back, it's because of an inability to just step up, take my role, take my piece of this wall, and fix that piece of the wall. Our community is a great example of what happens in our lives when we worship comfort over God. And the comfort idol tells us this. It says, if I could just have enough pleasures, if I could just relax, if I could just do as little work as possible, have no major responsibilities, then my life would be awesome. We've been chasing that dog for 25 years in my neighborhood, and life is not looking awesome. But the moment that we take comfort or leisure off of the throne of our heart and replace it with Christ, He immediately calls us into a life of active responsibility. Forward is not like a family. It is a family. And from this day forward, we're going to treat it just like that. If you're already a part of this family, you're a welcome addition, like I said. Not the center of attention, but a welcome addition to do what God's called us to do in this community. If you know people that need the love and acceptance of a family and they're not finding it anywhere, I expect to meet them next week. If you've never been here and this is all new to you and I'm just some crazy dude with a microphone, then that's all good. It is what it is. But I invite you personally to this new thing that God's doing in our neighborhood. This new family that just moved over on 5350 Broadway Avenue. Stop by for coffee or to chop it up or whatever it is, but we will start a family here that will paint a picture of what it looks like to the whole rest of the community. That's what our neighborhood needs to see, not a cool church.